ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. قال الله تعالى في التنزيل العزيز بعد نقول أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. وقال يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد. Indeed, all praises are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We praise Him, we seek His help, we ask for His refuge and protection from the evils of ourselves and from the evils of what we've committed. We ask Allah to guide us, because whoever He guides, no one can misguide. And we ask Allah to protect us from misguidance, because whoever is misguided by Him or led astray, no one can bring them back to the straight path. I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the only one worthy of worship, and that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His last and final messenger sallallahu alaihi wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. The Prophet ﷺ says something very beautiful once that's narrated by a number of Sahaba. It's in the collection of Imam Muslim and other books of Sunnah, in which the Prophet ﷺ says, إِذَا مَاتَ ابْنُ آدَمَ انقطع عمله إلا من ثلاث صدقة جارية أو علم ينتفع صدقة جارية أو علم ينتفع به أو ولد صالح يدعو له. The Prophet says in this authentic narration that when a person dies, the son of Adam, a human being, passes away, all the good that they have done comes to a stop. The counter of good deeds that was running as they were alive stops and ceases, except in three circumstances or three categories. Category number one is a ongoing charity, sadaqah jariyah. Category number two is knowledge that this person has taught and people are benefiting from it. And number three is a righteous child who makes dua, who supplicates after the passing away of his or her parents. These are the three categories the Prophet says continues to benefit a person after they have died. The implication is that we have to be doing something good right now. All of these three things, they're not something that's done after the fact. These are things that a person was doing while they're alive and left behind after they passed away. And they live on after him. They live on after him. The idea is for us to do good deeds right now. فَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. Look at what you have put forward for tomorrow. Look at what you are doing today. That is going to be left for tomorrow. That's what the ayah says. That's what the hadith implies. The time to do good deeds is while we are alive. And if we can do enough good deeds, especially of these three categories, that they outlive us, then the ajr of that good will outlive us as well. This is what the Prophet ﷺ is saying. I want to share this with you today for obvious reasons. This is a reminder that all of us can use at all times. A reminder of our mortality, our finite number of years that we are on this earth. We all can use that reminder at every time, in all weeks, but specifically after what we have experienced as a community. The trauma that was inflicted upon us, the act of terror that was committed against us, the family that was snatched away from us, makes us think about our own mortality, should make us think about our own mortality as well. Because on Sunday, they woke up like any Sunday. It was a normal day, preparing for the week after, doing what a normal family does. But that was it, the time was up. Time was up. And that could be any one of us. This week, on Monday, this is separate, I got a message that a brother passed away in Toronto. It was the name of a person. I read the message, I couldn't believe that this was this man. Because just the day before, he was organizing something in Toronto at his masjid for the family that was killed. And the day after, he had a heart attack, he died. Not too old. He wasn't that old. He was maybe in his 50s. And suddenly, just like that, it was all over. And Tuesday they prayed his janazah, and now it's all over. It's finished. It's such a shock to the system. It should be a shock to the system to see people who were alive and well, just unannounced, it's over for them. Whether in traumatic, tragic circumstances, like with our fallen family, our beloved Afzal family, may Allah elevate them to the highest levels of Jannah al-Firdaus al-A'la. Or somebody who just died from natural causes, a heart attack or something. But so unexpected, so sudden. It should make us pause. It should make us think. It should make us question, what are we doing with our lives? فَلْتَنْظُرْ نَفْسٌ مَا قَدَّمَتْ لِغَدٍ. Should look at what we are putting forward for our akhirah. And as it pertains to these incidents, I wanted to remind myself and you all of this hadith. That let us focus on something that we can do today, inshallah, that will live on afterwards, after we die tomorrow. The three things the Prophet mentions is a ongoing charity, sadaqatun jariyah. Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen says, وَهِيَ الْخَيْرُ الْمُسْتَمِرُ. This is ongoing goodness. And he says, examples are a person leaves behind a bustan, a garden, and people benefit from it. It's an excellent example, because a garden is not like a building. It's a tree or some trees. But did you know, if you plant a tree, every bird that eats from that, every animal that benefits from that, every human that benefits from the shade or the fruit of that tree, that is an act of charity. That's an act of sadaqah. That's for one tree. That's for one tree. It is, for example, leaving behind some property that's left behind as waqf, as a endowment, and that is used for good causes. This is another example that Shaykh Ibn Uthaymeen says, right? It is something that lives on, but the point is, لكنه السبب في إيجاده. The reason why it lives on after him is that that person who died was the reason that this project, this garden, this building was built. He was the one, or she was the one who initiated it, brought it into existence, and then passed away. And now that is what they have left behind as a legacy. That is what a sadaqah jariyah is. And it's very broad. It's very broad in its scope. It could be as variant as a garden or a tree to institutions and mosques and everything in between. It's very, very broad. But the idea is we do this while we're alive. We bring this to life in front of us. Or we start the process of bringing it into life in front of us, and then it lives on afterwards. That is a sadaqah jariyah. It's a question that I should ask myself, and a question that you should ask yourself. That if today is my last day, that's it, what sadaqah jariyah is left after me? Is there any sadaqah jariyah left after me that's going to live on after I have gone? And that's something for us to consider and think about and work towards. The second thing the Prophet ﷺ said is عِلْمٌ يَنْتَفِعُ بِهِ, or عِلْمٍ يَنْتَفِعُ بِهِ, knowledge that people are benefiting from. Generic, he did not specify what this knowledge is, because the principle in the Sharia is الدَّالُ عَلَى الْخَيْرِ كَفَاعِلِهِ. The one who points to something good is like the one who's done good. So any knowledge that is pointing people to good, that is an act of charity. That is something that will increase the good reward of a person. And if this knowledge specifically is of the Sharia, teaching someone something beneficial, teaching or preaching something that's good, that people remember and they continue to act on afterwards, that is an act of charity. That's something that lives on afterwards. And the last thing the Prophet mentions here is ad-du'a. وَلَدٍ صَالِحٍ يَدْعُو لَهُ. A righteous child who makes du'a for the parent. There's a hadith in Sahih Ibn Majah, narrated by Abu Hurairah, in which he says, إِنَّ الرَّجُلَ لَتُرْفَعُ دَرَجَتُهُ فِي الْجَنَّةِ. A person's rank will be elevated in Jannah. فَيَقُولُ أَنَّ هَذَا. So this person would be surprised. He would say, how did I get this? I didn't really do as much good as this elevated status is worthy of. How did I get this? So it will be told to this man, فَيُقَالُ. It will be said to him, بِاسْتِغْفَارِ وَلَدِكَ لَكَ. Is due to your child asking for forgiveness for you after you died. It's because your child made dua for you after you passed away. That is why you are in this high place in Jannah. أقول ما تسمعون واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومولا أما بعد. The Prophet ﷺ is mentioning for us these three categories of good that will live on after us. Something we did in this life that lives on after us, continuing to accumulate good for us on our behalf. Sadaqah jariyah, an ongoing charity. Number one. Number two, any knowledge, any good that's been taught to someone who continues to benefit. Whether that is Quran taught, whether that's teaching someone how to pray, whether it's teaching them something good that they remember, whether it's something that changes the way they think, whatever good that might be, that continues to accumulate good. And lastly is dua. The hadith mentions dua of the child, and it elevates the parents to a high level in paradise, as the other hadith mentions. But in fact, the dua of Muslims for each other is just as beneficial. The Quran says, وَالَّذِينَ جَاءُوا مِن بَعْدِهِمْ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا اغْفِرْ لَنَا وَلِإِخْوَانِنَا الَّذِينَ سَبَقُونَا بِالْإِيمَانِ وَلَا تَجْعَلْ فِي قُلُوبِنَا غِلًّا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ رَءُوفٌ رَحِيمٌ. This is the Surah Hashr. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the people who come afterwards. The people who come afterwards, after the Sahaba. This ayah specifically is after the Sahaba. That could include us, by the way. That should include us. They say, our Lord, forgive us and our brothers in faith who have passed before us. Forgive us and forgive them. And don't put in our hearts any resentment, any animosity towards a believer. O our Lord, you are the most kind, the most merciful. Such a beautiful dua. Think about that. O Allah, forgive our brothers who came before us, brothers and sisters who came before us. And today, those who are alive, let not there be any animosity between us. Let it be a relationship of goodness and love and compassion. Let that be the case right now, O Allah. And those who have passed, forgive us and forgive them, O Allah. This is the dua that is being made by people who are not related to us. In this ayah, this is not for a relative. It's dua for someone who shares iman with you. The brotherhood or sisterhood of iman. And the dua of the believer for the other believer is just as beneficial. In fact, when we read the tashahud, we say, Assalamu alayka ayyuhan nabiyyu wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Assalamu alayna wa ala ibadillahi salihin. Every time we pray, we send salutations upon the Prophet ﷺ, and then we send salutations upon ourselves, a dua for peace for ourselves and for the righteous servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is part and parcel of our worship, to make dua for each other. So this is absolutely critical. When someone passes away, tragically or expectedly as to natural causes, this is the best thing we could do for them. Lots and lots of dua, with the most sincerity that we can muster, because that is what is going to elevate them in paradise, just like the dua of those who will come after us will inshallah also elevate us. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to understand the Quran and Sunnah and to implement it in our lives. Inna Allaha wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi ya ayyuha alladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin fil awwalin wa fil akhirin, wa salli ala Muhammadin fil mala'il a'la ila yawmiddin. Allahumma ahyina ala sunnatihi wa mitna ala millatihi, wahshurna fi zumratihi wasqina min hawdihi ya rabbal alamin. وارض اللهم عن سادتنا أبي بكر وعمر وعثمان وعلي رضي الله عنهم أجمعين. اللهم اغفر لحينا وميتنا وشاهدنا وغائبنا وصغيرنا وكبيرنا وذكرنا وأنثانا. اللهم من أحييته منا فأحيه على الإسلام ومن توفيته منا فتوفه على الإيمان يا رب العالمين. Oh Allah, forgive those of us who are alive and those of us who are dead. Forgive those of us who are old and those of us who are young. Our men and our women, forgive them, O Allah. O Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those of us who you allow to live, let us live in submission to you. And those of us whose lives you take, allow us to die in faith and submission to you, Ya Rabbal Alameen. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ. Our Master, give us the best in this life and the best in the next life, and save us from the fire of hell. وَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
Please make sure the lines are straight. Please make sure that your masks are on. Jazakumullahu khairan. Salat at the masjid is now open for salah at Fajr, Maghrib and Isha. These three prayers we are open for salah. So you're welcome to come, but it is 15% capacity. You have to bring your own prayer rug and your mask, inshallah. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. سبح اسم ربك الأعلى الذي خلق فسوى والذي قدر فهدى والذي أخرج المرعى فجعله غثاء أحوى سنقرئك فلا تنسى إلا ما شاء الله إنه يعلم الجهر وما يخفى ونيسرك لليسرى فذكر إن نفعت الذكرى سيذكر من يخشى ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
We were told not to approach you. Assalamu alaikum.
Just give me a quick picture of the report.